Hello and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. We have a great project today. It's really going to be a fun project for you and a very quick one. It's a table runner. It's my Snowman and Snowflakes table runner. There he is. He's just a cute little table runner that I think you'll enjoy making. Here is one of the Snowman blocks. Now, the unique thing about this Snowman is that we're going to be creating him using Drunkards path templates. And let me show you my set of Drunkards path templates. I have a set here. I do have them out on my website, but you might already have a large Drunkards Path template. You need a Drunkards Path template that will make a 9.5 inch block, because that's what these blocks are, 9.5 inches before we put them into the quilt. So we're going to be using these two pieces, and we are going to be cutting out the snowman face from the white fabric using this pie slice piece. I like to call this the pie slice because it kind of looks like a huge piece of pie. And then we're going to cut out the background of the block with this. It's going to be the light blue background. And so let's take a peek at how we put this block together. All right, so here is the little block that we're putting together, and we're making two of these mirror image. And when I say mirror image, you'll see that this pumpkin is facing that direction, this pumpkin is facing that direction. They're both facing, their noses are pointing toward the center of the block, which means that this hat specifically has to be a mirror image. And so the template that you'll be getting, you'll want to make sure that one of them is a created mirror image. And the noses and the nose and the eyes, they're identical in either direction, but it's just the hat that you want to create mirror image. And maybe you would prefer to make a different hat. Maybe you'd rather have something other than this stocking cap that I have, but I think it's adorable. I have simply done, I made the Drunkards Path block, and then I did fusible applique with the nose, the eyes, and the hat. I did change out my eyes a little bit. Instead of making them round as my pattern calls for, I went ahead and just cut them as kind of little coal, pieces of coal, if you will. They're kind of have round, it's a square that's kind of rounded out. So that's what I have done there. You might want to add a mouth. You might want to add some cheeks. You might want to add some eyebrows. There's so much you could do with this. Maybe you want one of these to be a girl snowman and the other one to be a boy snowman. Have fun with it. This is really a great time. I did an edge stitch, a straight stitch, applique edge stitch all the way around. And that simply is stitching a straight edge, and I used a matching color, about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric, all around each piece. That applique was done, I think, in less than 10 minutes. There's really nothing to it. So the block goes together quickly. I'm going to show you how to do this Drunkards Path and put that together. First, I'm going to show you how to cut it. I'm going to show you how to sew it. I'm going to show you how to applique this. And then we're also going to work on the center block. My center block is very simple because oftentimes with a table runner, you have a centerpiece sitting on there so it's covered up. So this is just simply a snowflake, and I'm going to show you how you can get that traced as well and cut out your snowflake from the white fabric and applique it onto the center block. Over here, I have the rest of my fabrics. I already did cut another nose, so my second nose is ready, but I had some orange fabric for the nose. I had some black squares. I just pulled 2-inch squares from my fabric stash from which I will make my eyes. So that takes care of that. Out in the corners of this table runner, there are some of these quarter square triangles that we're going to be making. So I have 2 of my teal color or dark blue 3.5 inch squares, and I have 2 light blue 3.5 inch squares, and that's what we're going to use to make those quarter square triangles. And then I have my 1 inch inside and outside borders here of that dark teal. And then I also have my light blue borders that are right here. And then I have to cut, I realize I don't yet have the square cut for the center. I need a 10.5 inch square, I need a 9.5 inch square cut for that snowflake block. And then I have the extra fabric here for that snowflake block. That's what I also used for my snowman. This white fabric, I'm sure you can't tell, but there are snowflakes all over printed on that white fabric. And then this is a batik that I'm using for his hat. You could use black, but I want to go with these blues because my dining room is blues, and that will match my dining room. And then I grabbed a fabric here that kind of looks like a linen, and I'm going to show you how to cut our background pieces from that in just a minute. The first thing we're going to do is cut the background, and that will be from, in my case, I'm cutting it from this light blue fabric. And as I mentioned, we need to cut a 9.5 inch square. That's what we're cutting here. So I'm finding that cutting line that says 9.5 inches, and I am making sure that I am lining up the edges of my fabric on that 9.5-inch cutting line. That's very important so that you end up with the right size block. If you line up, in the case of this particular Drunkard's path, this outside edge is for a 10-inch block, and we're not making a 10-inch block, we're making a 9.5-inch block, which will end up finished in the quilt at 9 inches. But right now we've got to cut it on that 9.5-inch line, so I'm simply lining that up there. And then I'm going to have to turn this so that it works out better for me as a right-hander. I've got to be able to cut it correctly. Okay, so I've got this lined up again on the 9.5-inch line, and I am just going to follow that curve and cut. And there we go. There it is. There is our background. So this is excess. We can use we can cut this up for our scraps, or we can put it in our crumb quilt, whatever we'd like to do that, or crumb quilt basket. The one thing I'm going to do right away is fold it and put a crease in there. That crease is going to help us match it up to the pie slice, or the white pie slice of the snowman face. So I've creased it. Now I'm going to grab the other piece of the Drunkard's path and the white fabric, and I'll show you how to cut that. I've put this white fabric on a green mat so you can see it a little bit easier. And now I am going to cut this snowflake out. Again, I'm going to have to turn it because I'm right-handed, so I've got to get this turned around. And the pie slice for each of these templates is identical. So the smaller the block gets, basically the larger this appears in the block, because it doesn't change in size. So now that one is done. And what I'm going to do, remember I had folded that and found the crease there. I'm going to fold this pie slice, find the crease there. So those are the two spots I'm going to match up. I'm only going to use 3 pins. I'm going to use a pin here. I'm going to use a pin at each end here. And that's all that I'm going to use for pins. Let me show you how I'm going to pin this. So we are going to make it right sides together. The first thing I'm going to do is pin this crease to this crease. Make sure I've got it here. All right. Then this is going to come line up there so that it's perfectly parallel. You don't want it like this. You want this to line up so that it is perfectly lined up with the outside edge. And I'll show you how wonky this will look here in just a moment. Let me get it pinned. Okay, so it's perfectly straight there. That short edge is perfectly straight on that side. And we have all of this kind of up in the middle here, and that's all going to feed into itself. It's going to work out beautifully, and you'll see. And here again, we have this short edge. We're going to line it up over here so that it's perfectly lined up with the outside edge. And I've pinned it there. And this looks really wonky, but it will work great. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, and I'll bring my camera over as well. And I'll lay it down, and I'll start stitching there a scant 1/4 inch, and I'll remove the pin. And then I am just going to continue walking my way around the block on the machine, and you will be amazed. And then once I get to the center here, I'll remove that, but you'll be amazed at how that just lines up beautifully as you continue sewing all the way around the block. And then once I get to the last pin, I'll remove that and make sure I'm coming off straight off the edge. Don't come off at an angle, come straight off the edge here. And so I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. I'll bring you over so that you can see me sew this curve on the Drunkard's path. I brought my block over here, laid it under the machine. As you can see here, the blue is lined up perfectly with that. I'm going to take a stitch or two, then I'm going to remove this pin. And then I'm going to continue stitching just a scant 1/4 inch. Whoops, trying to keep my hands out of the way so you can see. And I just continue to line up the blue fabric with the edge of the white fabric. And it is just lining up beautifully. I'm not pulling anything. I'm just lining up the fabric. The 3 pins are all that's necessary. I'm removing that center pin now. I'm going to continue just lining up the fabric. Don't pull anything. This is all bias. If you pull it, you'll stretch things out. This just goes together beautifully. And a scant quarter of an inch is what you need to sew. And that just allows for the turn of fabric. And I'm going to remove that last pin. All right, let's see how I did on camera. Let's see what I did here. Look at that. Great. It worked out well. And I do not clip seams. It's not necessary. You can either press the seam away from the center or toward the center, depending on where the dark fabric is. I always press away from the light. So I'm going to press mine toward the blue. And because I sew with a scant quarter of an inch seam allowance, there is no need to clip seams. It lays beautifully. Let me go press this and I'll show you. Here is the block finished at 9.5 right now. So it's all pieced. It will go into the block and end up being a 9-inch block, but right now it's 9.5, and that's what we're looking for. So this is the snowman face. This is the blue sky background, and you're going to need 2 of these because you're going to have a snowman on both sides. And again, it's the reverse image for one of the hats. The Drunkard's Path block that you're making is going to be identical for both of these blocks. There's nothing mirror image about the Drunkard's Path block because you're just going to turn it. So here is how that one was made, and the same exact block is made for the left side of the table runner. And then you'll just add your nose and your eyes and your hat. And the hat is what I will be getting traced onto my fusible paper right now. I will give you templates for both the right and the left block in the pattern. And so this is the one I'm going to trace for my left block because I'm going to trace him on this side. I'm just simply going to lay fusible. And this is a light fusible. It's soft fuse, I believe, is what I have here. There's so many different types of paper-backed fusibles. A light heat and bond, steam-a-seam light 2, whatever you might have. And I prefer to use the light so that there's not as much glue in the block itself, and that makes stitching and applique so much easier on it. And so what I'm going to do now is trace this. I've got to track down my pencil. Here is the pencil. And you might want to grab a ruler because there's quite a long line. And I do like to keep a little excess fusible all the way around the outer edge of the element, and that just makes sure that your fuse goes all the way to the very, very edge of each of your elements that you're tracing. So I'm tracing this one from the pattern. I'm not cutting the pattern apart at all. This pattern remains intact. And then if I needed to trace eyes or my nose, I could also add that on this. But right now, because I already have my nose and eyes done, I'm just going to trace this. And then it is going to be pressed to the back of this fabric for his hat. So I'm going to locate, this is the back. I'm going to loosely cut this out. I'm going to grab scissors and just loosely cut this out. Again, I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And then I'm going to take it to my iron and I'm going to press it to the back. This is the back side. This batik is lighter on this side and darker on that side. So I want this to be my right side. This is my wrong side. So I'm going to press this fusible onto this. Once it's cool, then I will cut it out on the drawn lines. I'm in the process of cutting the hat out. And this is just a little stocking cap. If you want your snowman to have a different type cap, go ahead and make something that you'll enjoy. And so there's a little bit of fuse left all the way around, but that just ensures that that fuse comes all the way to the outer edges. All right, this time it fused. Remove that. And we'll bring our little block or our little snowman over. And the one thing that you'll notice is that his cap doesn't go all the way over to the edge. It just fits in there just like that. And I think I'm going to redo these eyes. These eyes that I had previously cut out were round, just like the pattern. And I think I want his eyes to match these, the little coal pieces. So I'm going to redo that. And then you might just want to check to make sure that you have your snowman nose in the same vicinity as this side, so they resemble one another. I am going to go redo my eyes. And once I'm happy with the placement of the hat, the nose, the eyes, and anything else you might want to place on your snowman face, then you'll want to take it to your iron and fuse it. Once it's fused to the background, it is ready to go. It's permanent. And then I'm going to set up my machine with orange and black. I'll probably do the black stitching first and then the orange stitching. I'm simply going to do a straight edge stitch all the way around. To make sure that both of your snowmen are matching, this one I've already fused. So I've laid it right sides together on this block. And then I just made sure that my bottom nose was in the right spot, that he kind of matched where I had that one placed. And I made sure these eyes were in the same spot, as well as the hat. And so I am good to go. So I can take this over to my iron and press this one. And then I'm going to get it appliqued, and I'll bring it back and show this to you. Both blocks are applique. I used a bright orange rayon thread, embroidery thread, to applique the nose, and I used this dark black for the eyes and also around the hat. Now let's get to the snowflake. This is the 9.5-inch square on which the snowflake will be placed. And then this is the snowflake itself. The pattern comes with the snowflake so that you can trace it onto the fusible, which is what I did. I just laid my fusible, paperback fusible, on top of my pattern. Again, do not cut the pattern out, leave it intact. I traced it on there, and then you get a little, this is the item number C here on the template. You get to use that as many times as you want, actually, within the center of this. I used it 6 times, and I just placed it in there. I put a dot in the center, and I just placed it in there 6 times. You could use a different design in the center. You could cut out a complete circle. You can make a different design. You can do anything you want. This is your snowflake. So I'm going to go ahead and fuse this to the white fabric. And then once it's fused, I will cut it all out, and then these will be cut out here as well so that the blue background will show through. So here is the snowflake block. I traced it on the fusible, pressed it to the wrong side of the white fabric, and I cut out, I had traced on those little elements here. I cut them all out. You want to use a small scissors when you do that. And now I'm going to remove the paperback here, the paperback fusible. Make sure I've got it still connected to the, yep, there we go. And remove that, and then I'm simply going to place it on the center of my block. You can take your block and press it, crease it horizontally, and then crease it vertically, and that will help you locate the center so that you can be sure to get your snowflake exactly in the middle. And I'm just going to do a little finger pressing here to accomplish that. And that will just kind of help me line everything up. And then just try and make sure that you've got everything the same distance from top and bottom and on the right-hand side. And once you're pleased with its location, press it. It's permanent. And again, I am just going to take a white rayon thread. I'm going to thread my machine. I'm using Aurifil, just a cream Aurifil in the bobbin, and I'm using these in the top. They're rayon threads for embroidery. And I'm appliquing using just a straight edge stitch all the way around the entire element. I'm going to go do that. I'll bring it back, and then we're going to start putting the table runner together. Before I sew on my little borders, I wanted to share with you what I did. I changed up the position of my outside snowman. The pattern shows it facing the center. However, I decided I like having one of them facing up and this one facing down. So you can do whatever you want with your table runner. You can position them in any way, but this is how I'm positioning mine now. I'm going to add the inside borders here. These are the inside teal borders, and then I'll add these outside borders as well as make the quarter square triangle, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. Let me get some of these borders on first. I have it pieced together, so I've got my 3 blocks here, and I did twist this block a little bit so you can put your table runner together any way you'd like. I've gotten the small borders on first, and then I've added the large borders here. But now before we put these outside larger borders on, we need to make the quarter square triangles. And each of these quarter square triangles needs to be a 2.5-inch quarter square triangle. So what I have done is I have pulled 1-inch larger pieces of fabric, or actually I've cut them at 3.5 inches. And I'm simply going to place them right sides together. I am going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. I guess I'll need to grab a pen here. Let's see if this purple will show for you. I'm going to draw a diagonal line here from corner to corner on both of them. So this is starting out just like a regular half square triangle. But this is cut an entire inch larger than what we're going to end up with. So we're going to go ahead and sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of these drawn lines. The first thing we're going to do, once we've drawn these diagonal lines, is sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of those drawn lines. So I'm going to do that, and I'll bring it back. My 2 half square triangles are created. So I've stitched a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of the drawn line. I am now going to cut on that drawn line. And at this point, we have created half square triangles. Now, the next thing we're going to do is press these. I'm going to press all of these. There's a total of 4 half square triangles here. And then I'm going to show you what you need to do next to create quarter square triangles. Normally, when I make half square triangles, I like to press my seams open. But in this case, for quarter square triangles, you definitely want to just press your seams to the dark. And then you are going to lay them together, right sides together, lights to darks, darks to lights. And then you're just going to butt up those seams so that it's completely flat. You don't feel any spaces in there at all. And I've already done that over here. So I have lights to darks and darks to lights. And I'm making sure those seams are butted up nicely. Just move it around with your finger and you'll understand what I mean. So we'll get those all butted up very nicely. And then we are going to draw another diagonal line perpendicular to that seam line. So this is the seam line, and we're drawing a diagonal line perpendicular to the previous seam line. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create another set of half square triangles with these two, and we'll end up with 4 quarter square triangles. I'm going to stitch a scant 1/4 of an inch down this side and back that side, and I'll do the same over here. And then I'll cut on those drawn lines, and they'll open up and be quarter square triangles. Let me show you that. All right, I've drawn the diagonal line. I've sewn a scant 1/4 inch on both sides. And when I cut on that drawn line, you're going to see that I have a total of 2 quarter square triangles here. And the same thing, I sewed on each side of the drawn line. When I cut on that drawn line, I will have a total of 2 quarter square triangles here. Then I'll need to square up each quarter square triangle to 2.5 inches. I've just cut one apart here, and I'm going to cut the other one apart. There we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we started out with 3.5 inch squares, 2 darks, 2 lights, to accomplish this. I decided I'm going to use my Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer to square these up. I'm going to use the 2.5 inch marking right here. I'm going to line up that 2.5 inch stitching line on my stitching line right there. I'm also going to make sure that this dark line in the center of the ruler lines up perfectly with the stitching line that comes up perpendicular on the element there. So there we go. I've got my 2.5 inch stitching line lined up here, and I've got that dark line of the ruler lined up perfectly with that stitching line. Now I can trim this up. And what's kind of nice about the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmers is that you can get rid of the excess points by putting your, there we go. And it's now 2.5 inches. I'll press mine next, and I'm going to press this last seam open. It just will allow everything to lay nicely. I'll have to clip that stitch from that last seam, and then everything will lay nice and flat. I have them pressed. I pressed the last seam allowance open, so they're laying beautifully. And now I'm going to attach them to this strip, and then I can attach the last strip here. And then I do have an outer edge, an outer border. That's another narrow border like that. That will go all the way around. Let me get that done, and I'll bring it back as a completed table runner, and you can see what it looks like. I've finished piecing the table runner. I've made a few changes. I made coal-shaped or square, rounded squares, if you will, for the snowman's eyes. And I did twist this block a little bit. You could certainly put them both together just as the pattern suggests here. But I decided to twist mine. And we have our quarter square triangles there. So today you learned how to put together a drunkard's path, appliquing, as well as these quarter square triangles. And then I've simply got some borders all the way around. This is ready, and I can't wait to get this quilted. I'm going to throw it on my long arm real quick and just get it quilted up very quickly so I can get it on my dining room table for the month of January and even into and through February. It could remain up there, especially for those of us who live in states where the snow is falling. The pattern for the snowman will be in the description box below. It's out on my website, so you can check for it out there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be doing monthly table runners, so every month there will be a table runner that will correspond to that month, and for January, a snowman is just perfect. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed how I taught you and what I taught you in this particular table runner pattern, and there will be a total of 12 of them this year. So stay tuned. If you do like the content that I provide on my channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with your friends, your family, your quilt guilds. That really does help my channel to grow. And make sure you like it and make a comment. I love to read the comments from my viewers. Thank you so much for doing that. And until next week, happy quilting.